another episode of Ask a Property Manager. This is episode number 52. My name is Eric Worrell with rentprep.com, a tenant screening company, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Andrew Schultz of Realty Edge, a property manager of over 120 doors in the Western New York area. Technically not a property manager, right, Andrew? You're an associate broker.
Yeah, broker. Yeah, associate broker.
New York State law, lingo, all that good jazz.
All that funness.
Yes. So I'm excited though. This is officially one calendar year worth of Ask a Property Manager videos.
No, it's not.
52. Oh yeah.
No, I went back and looked. It's not until September. I think September 15th is the 1 year.
Well, then how are we at 52 episodes? What happened?
So remember, maybe a month, maybe 2 months in, we were splitting the segments out. Each question would be its own segment. We did that for a couple weeks. That threw our numbers off. Then there were a couple episodes that were kind of lost to the ages in there, but still have episode numbers. And
it's not an exact science, you know.
It's not.
Hey, John, how you doing? Good to see you on the call here. Well, not a call, right? It's a live video. So anybody, right. If you have questions while we're going through the video, we got 4 really good questions from the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group this week that Andrew selected. But if you have any questions, feel free to share them or comments on stuff as we're going through it. As always, we'll try and pull as much up on the live broadcast as well. So first question here comes from somebody with the name Lindberg. And this person was saying that they're looking for ways to update a unit without spending a lot. So some of the bullet point suggestions that they had or things that they were wondering about was spray painting hardware. I think they were talking about going from maybe that brass look to a brushed nickel, smart tiles for the backsplash, which I'm not familiar with. I don't know if you are.
I'm not.
Yeah. And then also like painting countertops. So what are your thoughts when you think about like updating a rental, but at an affordable price?
So there's all kinds of things you can do to update a rental while still being affordable. Paint's going to go a long way. If you have something that looks outdated or dingy, just giving it a fresh coat of paint is going to take you leaps and bounds from where you were. As far as updating hardware, I've never tried like painting or refinishing hardware. Typically what we'll do is we'll update the knobs on cabinets to go from like a brass to that brushed satin or whatever you want to call it, satin nickel, whatever the case may be. Swap doorknobs so that they're not brass. You know, that's a pretty inexpensive thing that you can do that'll update the look of an apartment very quickly. Resurfacing countertops, there's a few different ways you can do it. I've never had any luck with any of the DIY products out there. There are companies, at least here in Western New York, there's a couple of different companies that'll come out and do the 2-part epoxy spray over top of a countertop. They also do it with bathtubs to refinish a bathtub that maybe has like a little bit of rust that's starting to show, or the enamel gets chipped or something like that.
I'll say for the bathtub, definitely hire somebody, because I've done.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you tried to do that. Yeah,
I did one of those DIY kits. You spray on enamel, and I mean, I went at this thing. I did everything by the book and the instructions, because sometimes you're like, that's good enough sand job, you know. And like, I really did this thing, and it peeled after about a year. But the professional job where the guy reglazed the tub has lasted for, I don't know, it's been like probably like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, we do if we have a tub that's really bad, we'll have them come in and professionally resurface it. I want to say it runs between $450 and $500 to do that, so it's not exactly cheap, but it certainly gives the tub a nice fresh look. It's usually good for several years. Actually, the company that we use more often than not, I think they give us a 24-month warranty or a 36-month warranty on that work.
Okay.
And they stand behind it. We've had them come back and redo it if it's caused an issue or something like that. So it does work out pretty well. Another cheap update is painting a ceiling fan, like painting the blades on a ceiling fan. Okay. Very inexpensive. Like take the old nasty brown ones, scrub them down good. Make sure you use some kind of a degreaser on it. Make sure they're nice and clean, and then just hit them with a rattle can of Krylon. Just hit it with some spray paint, and that can help. Just make sure you do, a couple layers of spray paint and then at least one layer of clear coat so that it doesn't look like it was just spray painted, so that it looks like it's actually finished properly. That'll actually get you, quite a ways. Bright lights help. Something as simple as a dim light can make an apartment look less updated. So nice bright lights help. Removing outdated window coverings and replacing them with something new, or even just replacing them with a fresh mini blind can help. Just simple stuff. There's a lot of things that you can do for not a lot of money that make an apartment look a lot more appealing.
I don't have any experience with this myself, but I have been in talks with somebody locally who does concrete countertops. And when you look
Mm.
at these things, and you would not know the difference between these and marble. They
Yeah.
look the exact same, but supposedly, like your cost per foot for a cheap granite countertop, you're probably looking what, like $45 probably per foot.
Yeah, probably somewhere in there on a cheap one.
Yeah, and I want to say that the price for this was like maybe like 20. So it's kind of in between
Oh
that,
wow.
like, Formica obviously is going to be way cheaper.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's something you can look into. I think coming down the line, that might be something that gets more and more popular because that's kind of a newer thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen that kind of one of the newer trends. I haven't really experimented with it yet,
yeah.
but it's on the radar as something maybe for one of our higher end rentals we'll try it or something like that.
Yep. And had one other idea that is now eluding me. But yeah, I think what you said about lighting too is really key. It doesn't even have to be new light fixtures, but like I know at my rental property,
Hmm.
just having motion sensor lights in the right places. So just,
Right.
that feeling of safety a little bit more when you're at the side door that there's a light on automatically or stays on at dusk.
Hmm.
Motion sensor in the hallways and down to the basement, those things can go a long ways too. And those things are, $10 for one of the screw-in ones if it's a basement or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Hmm.
yeah,
Um, Something else I wanted to bring up. What was it? Oh, if for finding inexpensive updates, hop on Craigslist, look there. Hop on Facebook Marketplace, look there.
mhm,
Local garage sales. I mean, we got like a his and hers sink, and they were the round, like the oval sized bowls. They were
mhm.
nice sinks. They'd only been used 2 months before this guy's wife decided she didn't want the overmount sink. She wanted undermount sinks in their bathroom. So we got those two sinks for $25 a piece with the matching faucets and everything. Like
Mhm.
that was an easy steal. That's something that even throwing it in the garage for a month or two until you have a use for it or whatever makes sense to grab it. But you can
Yeah,
almost always find, either new in box, somebody bought something and didn't like it, or something that was gently used. You can almost always find cheap lighting fixtures and upgrades and stuff like that on Facebook and on Craigslist. And the other places you can check, every Home Depot, every Lowe's has a clearance section that usually has some pretty decent deals.
yeah,
If you have anything like in Western New York, we have Grossman's Bargain Outlet. They usually have some pretty decent deals on stuff. It's just shopping and knowing what you're looking for or what you might need in the future, and then just setting it aside for when you do actually need it.
I'm gonna see if I can get the name on this one too. So in Buffalo, and they have these all over. They call it Buffalo Reuse.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Buffalo Reuse, and then Habitat
yeah,
for Humanity
capital
Restore.
U. So yeah, that's a really nice one in that the money generated from it goes towards Habitat for Humanity locally, but a
Hmm.
lot of the hardware that doesn't sell at Lowe's and Home Depot is donated there. So you can go in
Right.
and they'll have like it's not like you're trying to pick through and find your hardware. They have buckets and buckets of the hardware and it'll be 50 cents a dollar where it was selling for $3 for that hardware
Hmm.
at Lowe's. They also have their own paint that they make. I don't know how long it
Hmm.
lasts, but it's a recycled paint product that's really cheap and you can get it in 5 gallon buckets. So
Does it come like pre-tinted
I
or
think it is. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say
that's
there was
weird.
like kind of just real like neutral color. I want to say gray. I'd have to look at it again, but I was wondering how it would hold up for a rental property. So
Yeah, that's interesting. That's I'd never heard of that. I'm interested. I might have to pop in there and take a look at that.
and if you have a lot of rentals, right, Andrew, like I know that you have a relationship with Sherwin-Williams set up where you
Yep.
get a discount on paint from them because of the fact that you're doing volume.
Yeah, exactly. And we have an account with Sherwin Williams. They give us an excellent deal on paint and stuff like that. And all we needed to show them, I think, was just proof that we have a company formed.
Okay.
So that's really all it took to get a corporate account through Sherwin Williams. It's not like you have a whole bunch of hoops that you have to jump through.
Sure.
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Cool. I also, Jen Kuhn here had some good comments, which I should say, I always kind of laugh because Jen's real active on our videos here. Locally,
Hmm.
there's a garage door company, and the marketing director, overhead, what is it called? Hamburg Overhead Door.
Hamburg overhead.
But
Yep.
the marketing director's name is Jennifer Kuhn. So I hear all the time on the radio when I'm driving, like, "Hi, I'm Jen Kuhn." I'm like, this name follows me, from the
Right? It's
radio.
everywhere.
So Jen was talking about replacing old fixtures, hardware, and Lowe's. Yep, talking about some of that. The fact that you can get this for Micah, but I thought she had another good one too, where she was talking about the sticky tiles. That's what I wanted to pull up. So they're just like these sticky tiles that look like real tiles used for backsplashes.
They
I
just
don't
go over
know.
the top of an existing backsplash tile.
I've used the sticky tiles for the floor before.
I hate those.
Yeah. Like it was, I did it right over a previous laminate floor and they peeled. So I'm wondering, you don't have the same traction on a backsplash, but at the same time, it's the word splashes in there. So if it's getting
Right.
moisture, so.
Right. Yeah, I've never tried those. I've seen them. I've just never had opportunity to try them. I don't know how well they would work out.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and Jen, if you want to expand a little bit, she said she got a new vanity for top for free doing that. Regular was almost 200 new, and it was in the box. So I don't know if that's a Craigslist find or what that was, but we'll get back to that if she wants to expand. But in the meantime, we'll go to the next question because I could talk about finding deals all day, Andrew. That's my jam. That's my jam.
I love finding a good deal.
I know, who doesn't, right? All right. So this next question comes from Rachel. She says that they have a tenant behind on rent for August. This was a long post that I kind of summarized down a little bit. But basically, the tenant lied about having a roommate and fraudulently signed the lease in their name. So they found out after the fact that she has an eviction. They got the background check on Cozy, and then the check was automatically deleted, so they don't also have a copy. They're wondering what they should do. And then just to fill in a little bit more from what I could summarize from it, it sounds like this person maybe didn't have the rent, the income standards to rent this place. So they said that there was somebody else that was going to be sharing it with them, but really they were just taking the apartment by themselves. So a lot of stuff going on with this one.
So I'm wondering, well, I mean, let's deal with the initial issue first. I would say file the eviction. Do what you need to do to start the eviction process, because the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get. Get control of your asset back under your control. Once you have control of the asset, it's time to really reevaluate your tenant selection criteria and your application process to make sure that something like this doesn't happen to you again. I don't know if this roommate filled out an application or anything like that. It doesn't sound like, I don't know, there's not really enough information there to draw too many conclusions, but it sounds like there was probably either somebody wasn't screened properly or something like that somewhere along the lines. I would say you really have to evaluate your tenant selection criteria, come up with your written criteria, don't deviate from them, and require proof of everything. Rental application, proof of income via pay stubs or whatever the case may be, credit and background checks, make sure that you retain a copy of it, and kind of go from there. And then make sure that everybody who's living in the place signs the lease, either in front of you or digitally, one of the two. And I'm not sure how the second tenant managed to just, I don't know. There's not quite enough info there, but step one, evict. Step two, reevaluate your tenant selection criteria in your application process. And hopefully it doesn't happen to you again. It sounds like they're probably in for an expensive learning experience, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I got out of that too. I will say, as far as the mention for Cozy automatically deleted the background check. At RentPrep, we store those for people for a year. The one thing that I found troubling was that they found out there was an eviction after the fact. So when I read that, I was like, oh, well, they didn't run a background check, but then they did run a background check. So the reason that may come up, especially if somebody is in the eviction process. So an eviction can be filed, but not actually put on permanent record. So if they're going through an eviction with their current landlord and they start running from you and you run a background check, that eviction's not going to show up yet.
Won't pop, right? Yeah.
That's why, finding out who their current landlord is and what the deal is and why they're leaving that space is so important, because even if you do the due diligence of running the background check, you're not necessarily going to see an eviction that's currently in play.
Right. Also, I mean, and take a look and compare what's the address that they list on their application versus what's the address that's on their ID versus what's the address that's on their pay stubs versus what's the address that pops up when you run their credit and background, because it'll pop up with any known address that's been reported by that person on that property. So, or on their like if if you change your address with your bank so that you get your bank statements to your new place, it's eventually going to find its way back to the credit bureau. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opportunities there to look and see that all the addresses either match or don't match, and then ask questions of the tenant based off of that information.
Yep. All right. Very cool. Let's move on to a question from Fatima. This person asked, they said that they're concerned my tenant is moving in, has an 18-month baby boy, and our house was built before 1978 and could contain lead paint. So they're just worried about it, wondering what people's thoughts are on those situations with an older rental.
Sure. So in New York, at least, and I'm pretty sure this is federal, but at least in New York, you have to disclose if a home was built before 1978. You have to include a lead-based paint rider on your lease. You can just use the very generic form that I think it's EPA puts out. Just Google lead paint form, and it'll pop up. I guarantee it. And there'll be a spot for you to say, we have or we don't have any knowledge of any lead paint in the home. And everybody signs off and initials and everything, and then you're covered from that perspective. And make sure you give them the EPA lead paint booklet as well. You can download that for free right off of the EPA website, and I know they have it in a multitude of languages because we have the English and the Spanish version. Let me think. Paint. Okay.
I was going to say with that pamphlet, I mean, it's kind of lengthy. I want to say it's maybe like 10, 12 pages. So to print it might be kind of annoying. What I did with my last tenants that moved in, I had them physically sign the disclosure form. Each of us had a copy, saved that into my records, but then emailed them and told them to confirm receipt of the pamphlet. So I just kind of did that from my phone. I already had it teed up, and I said, hey, by the way, I'm going to email this to you. So then I also have a track record and some digital
that it was sent.
Yeah, that they received this on their in their email as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What we've been doing is either emailing it, or if we're doing a digital lease, we'll actually go through and make it the last section of the lease. So we'll have our lease, then we have to do like a state agency disclosure, and then we have to do our lead paint form. Then after the form, we actually include it right on their lease. So there's never a question as to whether or not they received it.
Okay.
And you can print that. You can change your settings to print that like multiple pages per sheet. So like a lot of times, I think you're right. I think it's a 12-page document. I think we print 2 or 3 pages per sheet so that you're cutting down on the amount of paper you're running through.
Okay.
And it's still very much readable at that point.
Yeah.
As far as the paint itself goes, make sure that you don't have any chipping and peeling paint. Just do a good walk around inside and outside. Look for any chipping and peeling paint. And if you find it, go ahead, scrape it and repaint it. You should take the lead safety course so that you know how to do that work the proper way. Areas that are always going to be a concern for chipping and peeling paint are going to be moist areas, such as exteriors near gutters, bathrooms all the time, kitchens all the time, window wells, things like that. Just checking those areas for chipping and peeling paint on a regular basis, once a quarter or so. And if you see it, address it right away. Just being proactive about it is going to save you a lot of time and aggravation in the long run.
All right. Very cool. Let's move on to our next question that comes from Zodi. So she says that she keeps getting calls from the housing headquarters asking if they'd be willing to rent to a family who had their house burned down. So the latest one she got was 6 months of rent, and it was at a much higher rate than typically she would rent for. Anyone else dealt with this? What are your suggestions?
We've dealt with similar programs, not that one specifically, but we've dealt with similar programs with good success. They will generally ask for a short-term lease. They want usually a 6-month or something like that. But they will pay that premium, which is nice. The nice thing about it is the money comes from the company. You just get a check in the mail once a month from the company with the rent money, which is huge. What we do is go through and screen the tenant the way we normally would any of our other tenants, and we'll count that company paying the money as income towards when we do their income requirements. So if it's a $900 a month apartment and the company's paying all $900, we count $900 additional dollars towards their income because that's where they're drawing that money from. So as far as the lease setups go, I've seen it done a couple of different ways. I've seen the lease done to the company and then they sublease it to the tenant. I've also seen it done to the to the tenant's name with the company as guarantor. I've also seen it done with just the tenant's name and then a completely separate agreement between the landlord and the company, almost like a Section 8 voucher, guaranteeing that rent. So there's a few different ways that it might be set up. It kind of depends on the company that you're working with. So you could talk to them a little bit more in depth on that. My preference is usually going to be the tenant being on the lease with the company as a guarantor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because that still leaves the tenant, the tenant's still on the lease, the company is on as a guarantor. You're covering yourself both ways there. Mm-hmm. If it's just the company subleasing, then there's questions about, well, the tenant damaged this, but who's responsible for it, or whatever the case may be. I like having the actual tenants on the lease with the company as a guarantor.
Okay. Jen asked a good question here. She said, would you bother finding out why the house burned down?
I mean, I probably would Google search it, but I don't know if I can use that as a determining factor as to whether or not I'd rent to somebody.
Yeah, I didn't know either, because it's you're really getting into the weeds on that.
Yeah, that's a good question for an attorney, which I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I would probably Google it, but I don't know. The last one we had was actually as a result of a fire. I don't remember what it was that caused the fire. But the house, I remember, was a total loss. I remember seeing photos of the house, and it was a total loss. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what it was that started the fire, but I remember, a quick Google search turned it up, and yeah, that's how we validated the story to be accurate, was just a quick Google search. So
yeah. I mean, any major event like that, you're going to find it on the Google search results pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And that just about does it for this episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in, checking it out. Enjoy getting your questions and comments as we're going through, so we always appreciate that. And we also talked about, Andrew mentioned that he's not an attorney. I don't know if Harry Heist is going to be watching this, but I'm going to call him out right here. Been emailing back and forth with Harry. He's an attorney in Florida. Might be doing a couple of videos with him in the Facebook group talking about different topics as well. So
nice.
Just trying to, mix it up a little bit too. So, Andrew, thanks again for the questions, the insights, and then until next week.
Absolutely. Right? Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Take it easy, man.